Apps can do a lot of cool things. You could order dinner, gamble on your favorite team, and track your health. You could even get a mortgage. One click and you can be approved. I'm not sure by who or what country they're in. You deserve more from the mortgage industry. At AnyMac Home Mortgage, we believe in the need for live human interaction during a very complex process. The kind of service and guidance which an app simply can't provide. Our customers are more than credit scores and income documents. They're individuals and families who live in and strengthen our communities. Their story is our story, and that story begins in a home. Chris Sawyer is an expert on providing superior customer service and in meeting the mortgage needs of current and future homebuyers. With over 18 years of experience in the industry, Chris is able to help customers migrate through the home buying and home financing process by using his wealth of knowledge as a well-qualified mortgage professional. And best of all, Chris is located in Cromwell, Connecticut, where he has helped hundreds of clients in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island make their dreams of homeownership a reality. Visit chrissawyer.any-mac.com. Email him at csawyer@any-mac.com or give him a call, 860-878-8730.
Chris Sawyer, NMLS number 39345, corporate NMLS number 338923. AnyMac Home Mortgage is an equal housing lender. American Neighborhood Mortgage Acceptance Company, LLC. DBA AnyMac Home Mortgage. Notify Direct. Connecticut First Mortgage Correspondent. License lender. Broker number ML 338923. Massachusetts Mortgage Lender and Mortgage Broker License number MC 338923. Rhode Island License Lender. License number 201128110L. Call for additional details.
Welcome to Sports Talk with R&J. I'm Steve Risser, along here with Justin D'Onofrio, and we are here. Week 1 of the NFL season. It begins tomorrow night, and that's where we're going to start. We are going to start there in Philadelphia. The Eagles will raise the banner against their arch rivals, the Dallas Cowboys, and we know the Cowboys are not coming into this game with a lot of momentum, seeing what happened last week with them trading their best player. But we'll get to that. But we'll get to the game between these two teams, between the Eagles and Cowboys last year. I know Dak didn't play in either game, but the Cowboys beat the Eagles beat the Cowboys handedly both times, 34-6 and 41-7. So the Eagles beat them handedly. I don't think the game will be that either. This game will be as much of a blowout as the two games were last year because Dak is playing, Dak is back, and he's had a lot of success against the Eagles. He's won 4 of his last 5 games against the Eagles, and 4 of those 5 wins were against Nick Sirianni. So Dak has won 4 of his last 5 against the Eagles, but the issue with the Cowboys is they just clearly don't have the better team. They don't have the better team. They're not good against the run. The Cowboys are not good against the run. I think Saquon Barkley has a big. I think he goes for over 100. I think he goes for at least $115 on the ground. I think Jalen Hurts has a good game. I think he throws a couple touchdown passes to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I think he has a good game. With the Cowboys passing game, getting George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, and with Dak, I do think they keep him in it early. I think Dak moves the ball. But at the end of the day, I think the Eagles will be the team that runs the football better. I think the Eagles will be the team that gets more pressure on the quarterback. And overall, the Eagles are just clearly, without question, the better team. That's why I got the Eagles winning this tomorrow night by 2 scores. I got the Eagles 30-17 over the Cowboys tomorrow night. But Justin, can Dak continue his success against the Eagles and lead the Cowboys to a huge upset win on opening night in Philly?
No, I'm with you on this one. I got the Eagles as well, 20-17. Yeah, I do think they're gonna have some success through the air early on, maybe keep this thing close, but their defense is not taking away their best defense player, Micah Parsons. Their defense is showing this game, and I think we're gonna see it a lot where they're gonna have to rely on Dak to throw the ball a lot this year. Because the running game, they got a couple of decent backs, but I don't think they'll be able to do a ton on the ground game, especially if they fall behind early. So I do think Dak puts up some yards in this one, but I think Jalen Hurts plays really well. I think he spreads it around the weapons he's got. Saquon Barkley has a pretty good game as well on the ground. So I got the Eagles winning this here by 2 scores and take care of business at home.
Yeah, they're just clearly the better team. And the Cowboy offense, it'll be interesting to see. I think you know what the Cowboys, what they are on defense. You know what the Cowboys are on defense. They're going to struggle defensively, especially against the run. They're going to struggle defensively, especially with what they traded last week. So they're definitely going to struggle defensively. But offensively, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this offensive line comes together. With the young guys like Tyler Guyton, Tyler Booker, who they just drafted, Cooper Beebe, who they drafted last year in the 3rd round. So we'll see how this offensive line comes together. And this running game, I think a big key tomorrow night for the Cowboys is, can they get the running game going? Because that's going to open things up for the passing game. Can they? Because last year they did not run the ball well at all early in the season. Started to run it better later in the year with Rico Dabo, but now he's gone. And now they got a combination of
Devontae
Miles
Williams.
Sanders, Javonte
Nice.
Williams, and then Blue, the running back for Texas,
Jaden,
Blue, who they
yeah,
drafted,
Jaden Blue.
Jaden Blue. So they have that combination. So it'll be interesting to see how that running. One thing I'm interested to see tomorrow night with the Cowboys is that running game and that offensive line. Because if it does play well, there's a chance they could be in this game in the fourth quarter, regardless of even though their defense is going to have a really hard time stopping the Eagles.
Yeah, no, definitely. It might. And yeah, the running game's a big mystery for him, but it should be tough in that run, especially with how bad their defense could be. They fall behind a lot. It's gonna be hard to at times I think rely on that running game and is gonna put a lot more pressure on Dak Prescott. And we'll see, they got George Pickens be that number two, but yeah, it's a big kind of question mark because yeah, I know they've the running game hasn't been there the last couple years. There was they didn't sign Derrick Henry last year. It wasn't great. It was kind of by committee last year, and yeah, it's gonna be the same thing again. But yeah, we'll see if one of those guys could, Williams, Sanders, or Blue could kind of be a number one, or they kind of feed off each other and complement each other. But yeah, it's I don't think Dallas would be a great running team just because their defense would be so bad and they'll fall behind a lot of games.
Yeah, I agree. And you said it earlier, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. The Cowboys will be throwing the ball a lot. Now look at the Eagles side of this. With them going to the season, they are one of the favorites again in the NFC, but rightfully so. They got one of the best rosters in the NFL. Now they lost a couple pieces. They lost Josh Sweat. They're not going to have Nakobe Dean to start the season. They lost C.J. Gardner. They traded C.J. Gardner Johnson away. They lost Mekhi Becton. They lost some pieces, but the key pieces are there. Jalen Hurts is there. A.J. Brown is there. Saquon Barkley is there. Devontae Smith is there. Jalen Carter is there. Zach Bond was re-signed. He's there. Quinyon Mitchell's there. So all the key pieces are there. And I expect this team. I definitely expect them to win tomorrow night. I think they'll be in control of this game by the middle of the fourth quarter. And I do expect this Eagles team to, as I said last week, to be really, really good because of how good this roster is.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe they get off to a little bit of a slow start tomorrow night, but I think they get it going, especially maybe towards the second half. But yeah, their rosters, they still got one of the top best rosters in the sport. Yeah, they lost kind of a couple depth guys, but like nothing that I don't think they could, that they can't replace or anything like that. So yeah, I think the Eagles still be really good, on both sides of the ball. They're really good. I think, in the trenches they should be again. And we're gonna find out because their first four games, I know maybe Dallas, obviously they should win, but after that, the Chiefs, the Rams, and then the Bucs have given some problems. So yeah, we'll kind of find out a lot in this first month or so about kind of the Eagles and where they stand, if there's any Super Bowl hangover for them. So yeah, it's one of the best rosters and definitely could repeat as the NFC champions and the Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, we do remember they did have a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover in 2018. After the year after they beat the Patriots, they ended up making the playoffs. They were only 9-7. They did win a playoff game, but they only finished 9-7. They were very up and down that year. But I think this year will be a little bit different because I think the difference is they know who their quarterback's going to be. Like going to that 2018 season, they didn't really know who the starting quarterback was. They knew it was going to be Carson Wentz, but Nick Foles had to start the season. Nick Foles had just won a Super Bowl, so it was kind of. There was controversy there. This year, they know who the starting quarterback's going to be. They know who the leader of the team is going to be. And there's a different coach. There's Nick Sirianni's a different coach. And Nick Sirianni, as much crap as I gave him early on, he's had a ton of success as an Eagles head coach, and he's one of the top 10 coaches in the league. So I don't think there's going to be any Super Bowl hangover from this Eagles team.
Yeah, no, there shouldn't be. Yeah, Sirianni, same about him as well. I was not a big fan, but I thought he got better last year, and yeah, they both coach and yeah, they should be. They're going to be loaded again, and yeah, I think Jalen Hurts plays well, and there's no question. So yeah, I don't think there'd be a Super Bowl hangover, but wouldn't be surprised if they dropped a game in like Kansas City. If they drop, maybe the game it's the Rams, Stafford's healthy and playing well, or maybe in the Bucs the Bucs win a shootout. So but yeah, so I think the Eagles they shouldn't have a hangover, but wouldn't surprise they lose one of those games coming up.
Yeah, but but tomorrow night should not be a loss. Seeing that the team they're playing just traded their best player, Micah Parsons, and we will get to that. As last Thursday, the football world was shocked as Micah Parsons, and you said you didn't think they were going to come up. You were right. You didn't think they were going to come up with a deal. You were right. I thought they were going to come up with a deal because Jerry always did, but it proved that things got personal between Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones. It proved that things got personal, and Micah Parsons was traded traded from the Cowboys to the Packers for 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark. And stop, Cowboy fans, stop saying Kenny Clark is really good. And Jerry Jones, stop saying Kenny Clark is really good because he had one of his worst seasons last year. He's average at best against the run. Jerry Jones had brought up, we got to stop the run. That was his reason why they made the trade. Micah Parsons was better against the run than Kenny Clark was last year. And it's not even remotely close in terms of getting to the quarterback. Kenny Clark only had one. I know he's been to 3 Pro Bowls, but he only had 1 sack last year. But talking about this trade, and we'll start with the Cowboy angle of it, do the Cowboys have any chance to make the playoffs with trading Micah Parsons? And I would say it's very, very slim. But because of Dak, and we've seen the Cowboys, when Dak has been healthy, be a pretty good team. Now, I think the ceiling for the Cowboys is 9 wins. But I do think because of Dak, it's not a great chance, a very slim chance, but there is a slim chance they'd make the playoffs. But the only teams they have, to me, they have a better chance of making the playoffs than are the Giants, the Panthers, and the Saints. Those are the only 3 to me. But because of Dak, I think there's a slim chance they can make the play. They can still make the playoffs. But they're nowhere near being a Super Bowl contender. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, their ceiling now probably 9 wins, because the trade made no sense to only get 2 first-round picks that are probably going to be, in the 20s more than likely, maybe in the 30s. They get to a Super Bowl, and then you got a guy Kenny Clark who, you mentioned had his worst year last year, and he's 30 years old too. Like you couldn't get a young guy that's 23, 24. Kind of poor Dallas, and they've seen Luka and now Parsons the last 6 months get traded. So 2 bad trades.
Terrible trades. 2 absolutely terrible trades. Terrible trades. And this leads me to my next point. How bad does Jerry screw this up? How bad did Jerry screw this up? And he completely screwed this up. Parsons wanted to get paid in the offseason of 2020. After the 2023 season, Parsons wanted to get paid. They wait, and all right, they wait. It was only his 3rd year in the league. I get why they wait. But last off season, they should have absolutely paid him in March or even in March. The beginning of March, he should have been paid. Now, he was called in, according to David Mulligetta yesterday on First Take. He was called in by Jerry's assistant to for some leadership thing, and that became somewhat of a contract negotiation between him and Jerry Jones. But why is Jerry Jones not negotiating with the agent? The agents negotiate the contract. So that was another issue. And then if you didn't like him, then
that break the CBA? Doesn't that break the CBA?
I think it does. It's crazy. And then if they're going to trade him in March, and you would have gotten better value. They not only traded Micah Parsons, they traded him to a team that beat them in the playoffs last year. They traded him to a team that beat them in the playoffs last year. And the return, I'll say it was a good return, but it wasn't like a haul. It wasn't a Herschel Walker-like return. You get, as you said, 2 first-round picks that are probably going to be in the mid to late 20s. So Jerry Jones absolutely screwed this up for the Cowboys.
Yeah, that was a very head-scratching deal. I thought Jerry Jones had enough marbles left, but I guess not after that one. And yeah, I get he was frustrated, but the way negotiation went with the agent, Jerry didn't help things by going on his media tour 2 weeks ago, destroying the agent and Parsons.
No.
He didn't, I know Parsons didn't help himself either with lying, the notches on the training table, but yeah, to only get 2 first-round picks and a guy and a defensive player who's in his 30s, who's probably more now in the decline. I don't really get it, because there had to be other offers on the table if they waited. There had to be.
Oh, absolutely.
You could have got. Yeah, you could have.
I think your team could have given a better package than that.
Probably. Probably, because we're probably gonna be a mid first round pick towards that area. Yeah, we could have gave him one of the young defensive players that we got, that they could have wanted. So yeah, I think we could have. I was kind of hoping I didn't think they were gonna pull the trigger, but yeah, so Jerry could have got more trade offers to try to to boost up the trade value, but he just didn't, and so he really messed it up, and I don't know. you don't want to feel bad for Cowboys, but the way it's ran, you kind of have to. I know probably not for you as a Giant fan,
I know
but
I don't
it
feel
is
bad for
bad
them.
the way. Yeah, I know, but like it's just, it's insane. But
The
again,
set,
Jerry just cares about the money. They
that's the
always have
thing.
the tours every day,
Yeah,
like he
yeah,
cares
yeah,
about the
yeah.
money.
The sad part of the Cowboy organization is they care more about attention than getting. They care more about getting
Yeah.
attention than winning. That's the sad part of the organization. That's the sad part. And as a Giant fan, yeah, I don't feel bad for them. But the problem with the
Yeah.
Giants is they've been ran worse. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They've been worse. They can't beat the
Yeah.
Cowboys. That's the problem. We'll get to that next week when they play each other. But they're ran worse than the Cowboys. That's the problem. I mean, hopefully it doesn't
Yeah.
continue with this draft. I like this draft, but still, they ran worse than the Cowboys. That's the problem. So, yeah, I don't feel bad for the Cowboy fans as a Giant fan, but the problem is the Giants are ran worse. But we'll get to the Packers angle of this. And are the Packers going to this season? Are the Packers the best? Last week, I picked the Lions to win the division. With this trade, do the Packers pass out the Lions? Are they the best team in the NFC North, in your opinion? In my opinion, they are. I think this is because I said last week with the Packers, they had a lot of good on their team, but not a lot of really nothing great. This is great. This is a great pass. This is one of the best defensive players in the league. This is a great pass rusher, a guy who had at least 12 sacks in his first 4 seasons in the league. So, yes, I do have the Packers as the best team in the NFC North.
Yeah, I do too now. I have them being better than the Vikings. I think I think I like your point that you just said because they need another pass rusher and to get the best, one of the best ones in the sport to get that great player in defense because their defense has been good, but now this kind of puts them over the top and he's another young player and this team's got they're full of really young talented players that if they all put it together, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they're sitting there in the Super Bowl this year. We'll see. And if Jordan Love could be a little bit more consistent this year, I really like this Packers team. So yeah, right now I have them winning the NFC North right now, and the Parsons pickup was a great one because they didn't have a ton of holes, but like pass rush was one where they could get better, and they absolutely did with trading Parsons. And hey, only give him 2 first-round picks and like Kenny Clark, it's not a bad deal. He'd do that 100 times out of 100 times.
Absolutely. And, with him and Rashawn Gary, that's going to make a really good duo there. Now, are the Packers the best team in the NFC? And I'm going to still say no. I'm still going to go with the Eagles. Now, I do think they make the NFC Championship game now, but I'm going to go with the Eagles. I still think the Eagles are the best team in the NFC because to me, they still have the best roster in football. The Packers roster, the offensive line isn't as good for the Packers. Their defensive line, even though with Parsons and Gary, it's arguable that I don't think their defensive line is as good. I think that they don't have that proven number 1 receiver. So I'm going to say no. I'm still going to go with the Eagles.
Yeah, I still have the Eagles too. I think Matthew Golden could be that number 1 guy they've been looking for. I just need to see more consistency for Jordan Love too before I really start to buy into him. But yeah, I think they're like the second best team, and I could definitely see them ending up in the NFC Championship game. But yeah, I just got to kind of see Jordan Love put it all together for 17 games. But yeah, it's a really good roster, good division. But yeah, I think they're just very very close on the Eagles, but not
Yeah.
the best one yet.
Yeah, I agree. That Monday night game will be interesting with the tush push thing and everything. That Monday night game will be interesting when those 2 teams play in November. But speaking of the Packers, they open the season against their division rival, the Detroit Lions, and the Lions have dominated the division. They have won the division the last 2 years, and Dan Campbell has had Matt LaFleur's number. He has beaten Matt LaFleur going back to the end of 2021. 6 out of the last 7 times. So, and they've swept them twice. They swept them last year, and they swept them in 2022. The only time the Packers have beaten them since 2021 has been in that Thanksgiving Day game in Detroit. They beat them in Detroit on Thanksgiving. So the Lions have won the last 3 times they've been at Lambeau. So that's the last 3 times at Lambeau. That game, that season finale in 22, they won. They won that Thursday night game in 2023, and then they won that game in Week 9 last year. So they won the last 3 times at Lambeau Field. But I think there's a difference maker on the field for the Packers. And I do think there's questions if Parsons is going to play or not. But I think he's going to. There's going to be a package for him. I think he's going to be a difference maker. I think he's going to get a sack or 2 in this game. Also, I think the big reason why the Packers win this game is the run game. Akeem McNeil, one of the really good tackle for Detroit. He's going to be out till November, and that's going to be an issue for the Lions. I think teams are going to run on the Lions, and the Lions are going to have a great run defense because of that. There will be good run defense, not a great run defense. And I think he's going to get his yards. I think Jordan Love's going to throw a couple touchdown passes. I do think the Lions move the ball too. I think this game is close. I think this game is competitive, but I think I'm going to go with the Packers here because they have the difference maker. I think it's going to end 1 or 2 ways. Either Jordan Love leads the Packers on a game-winning drive, or Micah Parsons or Rashawn Gary makes a play on defense to win the game. It ends in one of those 2 ways, And I got the Packers starting the season 1-0, beating the Lions. I got to win this game 27-24. But Justin, can the Lions beat the Packers for the 7th time in 8 games and continue their dominance in the NFC North?
No, I'm with you here. Got the Packers 27-24. First game 2 here for Detroit with 2 new coordinators. How does that kind of go? Yeah, I think Jordan Love plays pretty well. Josh Jacobs kind of continues what he did last year, at over 1,300 yards on the ground. I think Matthew Golden has a couple of big plays in this one. We'll see, Parsons, how much he gets in there this week and how much of an impact that he can have. But I think Green Bay's defense makes a couple of good stops in this one. I'm interested in Jared Goff's first game here without Ben Johnson in a couple of years. How does that go? And maybe they're a little rusty early and trying to figure some things out. And I think the Packers take advantage. And Jordan Love makes a play late in the game and wins the football game. So I'm going to take the Packers here at home 27-24.
And a good point about Detroit's coordinators. Even though they've been on the staff, and for Jared Goff too. It's the first time Jared Goff this is the first time since he's been with now he wasn't Johnson wasn't the OC in 2021, but he was on the staff in 21. But if you look at Jared Goff without Sean McVay or Ben Johnson, he has really struggled. Now, he's got a great offensive. He got Jahmyr Gibbs. He's got still a really good offensive line. Amon St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam LaPorta. Really good offense around him. But he does struggle outdoors, and he has struggled without, Sean McVay or Ben Johnson. That's a really, really good point in this game. And that's another reason why I probably picked the Packers here, because I think Jordan Love will outplay Jared Goff in this game. Now, I don't think Jared Goff will be terrible, but I think he'll outplay him in this game. But a very good point about the coordinators. It's a very good point about the Lions losing those 2 coordinators. That definitely could factor in on Sunday, seeing that they really didn't play their stars a lot in the preseason.
Yeah, it didn't. So, maybe there's a little bit of adjustment period that could totally be kind of a factor. First time kind of play calling too. And it's a kind of big game. So maybe I could see Detroit getting off to a little bit slow start there on the road in a division game. Could be kind of tough to come back with. So as long as Jordan Love protects the football, could see kind of the rust early for Detroit, and Green Bay kind of takes advantage of it.
Exactly. We'll see. It should be an interesting game. Divisional game, 425 CBS. So it should be an interesting game on Sunday in Green Bay. Now we will move on to Friday's game in Brazil between the Chiefs and the Chargers, a divisional matchup between those 2 teams. We all know, so we all saw the field last year in Brazil. It was a very, 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 very. We saw the field in Brazil last year. It was kind of a mess, and I don't know how it's going to be this year. I didn't really look that up, but we'll see how it is this year. But for this game, I think it's going to be close and competitive early. Listen, if there's a team that has more of a chance to have a Super Bowl hangover, I definitely think it's the Chiefs more than the Eagles. Because remember the Chiefs when they lost the Super Bowl the last time, they started 3-4. They ended up getting to the AFC Championship game, but they started 3-4. I think there could be a little bit of a hangover with the Chiefs because I think there's issues in the run game and I think there's issues in the O-line. Now, I don't think the Chargers are a great run-stopping team, so I do think the Chiefs will have success running the football here. I do think Andy Reid will scheme things out, get the ball out of Mahomes' hands quick. And I do think the Chargers, though, will have success on the ground. I think this will be a close, competitive game. But at the end of the day, I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to make less mistakes than Justin Herbert. I think Herbert will make a mistake or two because he's a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. We've seen that for years. And I think the Chiefs' pass rush and the Chiefs' pressure will – and this will happen in a lot of Charger games when they get behind late, I think, this year, especially against good teams. I think the pressure the Chiefs bring is going to be the difference. And that's why I'm going to go with Kansas City here to go to 1-0. I got the Chiefs beating the Chargers 27-20. But, Justin, can Harbaugh and Herbert beat the Chiefs for the first time together? For their first time together.
No, I get the Chiefs as well here, 24-20. And you just mentioned too, I think that Slater injury is going to be an issue all year for him. And you kind of go back to last year, like the Chargers, a lot of the top 2 quarterbacks they played last year, they didn't really beat outside of, like the Bengals, and they didn't play a ton of them. But the one that they got was Cincinnati. And that's because Cincinnati can't get a stop defensively. So. I'm interested kind of how year 2 here with Harbaugh goes, but I think Mahomes makes enough plays in this one. I think the Chargers can get after Mahomes, but I think he makes enough plays. But I think Kansas City does well to kind of stop that running game, and I do think Kansas City gets ahead in this one and forces Herbert and Chargers off to throw the ball more. And that's a big question for the Chargers too this year. Is who's going to step up and find McConkey had a really good rookie year, but they really need that number one, that other kind of wide receiver there with them. And could it be, so who's that going to be? Could it be like a Trey Harris? I don't think it's going to be Quentin Johnson, but so yeah, I think though Kansas City defensively makes enough plays in this one. They beat the Chargers in this one.
Yeah, I think KC wins. It goes to 1-0. And you made a good point about the Chargers. You made a good point about the Chargers in terms of who's going to step up. It probably won't be Quentin Johnson because he hasn't been good the first 2 years. Akaki, he's a slot guy. Keenan Allen, I feel like his best days are behind him. I feel like it's got to be Trey Harris, the guy they took in the second round. I think it's got to be Trey Harris. It's got to be the guy who steps up for the Chargers. But it should be an interesting game. But I got the Chiefs winning close. But getting to the other two top teams in the AFC, and we got a huge matchup on Sunday night, and that's between the Ravens and the Bills. And I think this is going to be you wish this game was later in the season. You wish it wasn't week 1 where none of these either Lamar or Josh Allen played in the preseason. So you might see some sloppiness with the teams. They might turn the ball over here and there. It may not be as great of a game as we think it is because it's in week 1 and these teams have had neither of these quarterbacks have played in the preseason. They both have kind of had the same preseason approach of sitting. Now the Bills, some of the Bills starters have played at times, but Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson haven't. So the Bills and Ravens have had that approach of not playing their starters in the preseason. They've had that approach. I think this is going to be a close, competitive game. But I'm gonna take the quarterback who's at home here. I'm gonna take Josh Allen. I'm gonna take the MVP. I think he throws a couple touchdowns. I think he runs for I think he gets a couple total touchdowns in this game. I do think Lamar moves the ball. I think Derrick Henry. I think the Ravens run the ball better. I think they might outplay him, but I do think just like in the playoff game, I feel like the Bills will be the team that makes less mistakes because the Ravens have trouble in Buffalo. Lamar has trouble in Buffalo. I think he makes a mistake or two here. I think it's a close. I think it's a competitive game, but I'm going Bills here. I'm going Bills 27-23 over the Ravens. But Justin, can Lamar and the Ravens get revenge from what happened last year in Buffalo in the postseason?
No, I'm with you. I have the Bills as well, 20-24. Do you think there could be a lot of points with these two offenses, and both secondaries are going to be tested very early in this one. But I think Josh Allen at home makes a couple more plays than Lamar does. And both quarterbacks, especially Allen last year got better of not throwing the interceptions. And Lamar's been pretty good at it his whole career. Like that one big kind of INT the QB throws could be the difference in this game. But I think, Derrick Henry has this good game on the ground. I don't think it's enough. And I do think Josh Allen, leads them on a game-winning drive. And the Bills knock off the Ravens. The Ravens lose another heartbreaking week 1 game like last year against Kansas City.
Yeah, I think it is because I think right now I think it's pretty clear. I know Josh Allen has more MVPs, and neither have gotten to a Super Bowl. But right now, I'm taking Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson. I am. I think Josh Allen plays Kansas City better, and I feel like Josh Allen does more with less. Josh Allen lost Stephon Diggs, his best receiver, and the Bills were 3 points away from getting to the Super Bowl, and they beat the Ravens in the playoffs, and Josh Allen outplayed Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. So. If right now, if you're telling me, all right, who am I? And now I think they're both clearly top 4 quarterbacks in the league, arguably top 3 quarterbacks in the league. But if you're telling me who am I taking right now, I'm taking Josh Allen. And that's a big reason why, because I think the Ravens have the better roster, but I think the Bills have the better quarterback and they're at home. That's why I'm taking the Bills to win the game. And the reason I picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl is the home games they have. At home to the Ravens, home to the Chiefs, and home to the Eagles. All the big games they have are at home. And I think it starts on Sunday where their quest to get the number 1 seed. And I think they beat the Ravens because they have the better quarterback in this game.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because my one thing the last couple of years with Allen was kind of the turnover bug, but I thought last year he did a lot better of a job of protecting the football, not putting it harm's way. And Lamar's been always good at that. And Lamar hasn't had, especially lately, like the great cast. Well, I know like Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, both been a little bit streaky, but both kind of, have gotten better. But yeah, with the Bills, like, Shakir's been there kind of number 1. Like Keon Coleman last year was a little bit inconsistent. We'd like to see a little bit more this year. So yeah, both, Dalton Cade's been a solid tight end for him. But the Bills haven't had Diggs now be the second year without him. So yeah, like Allen hasn't had that true number 1 either of late. And I've been more kind of a little bit more impressed lately with Josh Allen with his kind of legs and being at home and with that schedule, I think I have them going like 14-3. They should this is the year for the Bills to get it done. It's set up perfectly for them, and it's either now or it feels like it's never gonna happen for the Bills if they don't get it done this year.
Yeah, it is. You're right. This is definitely the year for the Bills to get the number one seed. Seeing their schedule, seeing that they're clearly the best team in their division, and you can't say that. I mean, the Ravens. You can't say that about the Ravens, even though I think they're better than the Bengals. You can't say that about the Ravens, and you definitely can't say that about the Chiefs because I think the Broncos are right up there with them because of the offseason the Broncos had. So this is a big opportunity for the Bills to get the number one seed and get to the Super Bowl because they've had a lot of bites of that apple. But I think this is their best opportunity, seeing that they have the Ravens, they have the Chiefs and the Eagles at home, seeing that all these big games are at home. This is a big opportunity for the Bills, and it all begins Sunday night against the Ravens. Now we will move on to another NFC matchup this week, and that is between the Giants and the Commanders. The Commanders, Jaden Daniels trying to pick up from where he left off last year. Giants, we'll see. Giants, they drafted Abdul Carter, they signed Russell Wilson, drafted Jackson Dart, but rightfully so, Jackson Dart isn't ready, even though he was named the number 2 quarterback yesterday. He's not. He's rightfully so. He's not ready. So Russell Wilson will get the start in this game. And I do think this game ends up being a one-score game. I do think it is. For a couple reasons. I think first the Giants will get pressure with Cosmi. Cosmi's is going to be a loss in this game. He's going to be a loss in the pass game and the run game. I do think the Giants get pressure on Jaden Daniels in this game. I do think they do, and I also think they contain that running game. And I've heard a lot of things about Crosby Merritt, but don't forget the Commanders did trade Brian Robinson. And I don't think the Commanders are going to run all over the Giants in this game. I don't think they are. I do think the Giants will have some success on the ground. I do think Tyrone Tracy is going to have a pretty good game. I think he will. I think the Giants will run the ball better, and I do think the Giants will get more pressure on the quarterback. But the big difference in this game and why they're a 6.5 favorite, the Commanders are a 6.5 favorite, is they got the much better quarterback. And Russell Wilson is okay, but to me, his best days are behind him. I know he looked pretty good at times in the preseason, but to me, his best days are behind him. I still think, even with the pressure, Jaden Daniels, that's going to be on Jaden Daniels. I do think he's going to make plays in this game. I do think he's going to throw a couple touchdown passes. I think the difference in this game is going to be the red zone. I think the Commanders are going to convert on their red zone opportunities and score touchdowns. I think the Giants are going to move the ball, but they're going to kick field goals in this game. So I think it's going to be close. It's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be one score. But I'm going to go with the better quarterback, and I'm going to go with the better team. I am going to go with the Commanders here, 24-16 over the Giants. But Justin, can Wilson and the Giants D lead them to an upset win in Washington?
I think they keep it close, but I got the Commanders here 24-20. I think it's possible. I think, if they can run the football effectively enough, which I think they can, sets up play action. I think Malik Neighbors got a pretty good day. How rusty is Terry McLaurin come, I know he signed a contract, like a week and a half ago-ish, but, is there still some rust there? Because they, didn't participate a ton in camp this year. Didn't see any preseason action. So, could there be some rust? And I think the Giants defense is going to get a lot of pressure on Jaden Daniels. And again, could they force him to make a turnover too, help out that offense, make a short field? I think it's very possible. I think the Giants keep it close because of the defense, but I don't think the offense makes enough plays in this one. And I do have the Commanders getting this one 24-20.
And you did bring up a good point about Terry McLaurin. How rusty is it going to be? Because, yeah, he was not there all preseason. Now, the Commanders played a couple series in the preseason, their offense, but not a ton. But, yeah, how rusty is Jaden Daniels going to be? How rusty is Terry McLaurin going to be? That's a really good question. How rusty is he going to be? So that's a good question. And then the Giants end of things, yeah. I mean, if they can run the ball, it'll set up play action, and you'll be seeing a lot of shots down. You'll be seeing shots down the field. You'll be seeing the Giants throw the ball down the field with Russell Wilson. Now, the issue for the Giants in this game is going to be Andrew Thomas. There is a chance Andrew Thomas won't play, and that's going to be crucial because if you don't have a good left tackle, you're trying to throw the ball. It's very, very, very difficult to throw the ball down the field without a good left tackle. So if James Hudson has got to start and Andrew Thomas doesn't, the game probably won't be as close as I think it's going to be. I'll say that right now. If James Hudson has to start at left tackle, Andrew Thomas doesn't, the game probably won't be as close as either of us think it's going to be. So that's going to be crucial too. That's going to be crucial to see what happens with Andrew Thomas. That's going to be crucial. But very good point about bringing up Terry McLaurin, and there could be some rust there between him and Jaden Daniels, seeing that he didn't really do much with them in the offseason.
Yeah, definitely. There could be a little bit of rust there, and if Andrew Thomas will play, that's a huge loss. And I know both of those kind of huge key for the Giants this year to have success is needing him to be on the field all 17 games. It's not great that he already may miss week 1 here too. So it'd be a huge loss because you saw the impact that he has on that offensive line, and he's been a great draft pick. So yeah, that's a huge loss. And yeah, like if he's not in there, yeah, I could see the Commanders winning by 2 scores easily in this one.
Yes, that's it. It's going to be big. That's a big injury right there. Andrew Thomas is definitely a big injury. You got the Giants covering the spread 6.5, that number. But I bet if Andrew Thomas doesn't play, you probably won't
That
have
goes
him. You
8 or 9.
probably probably won't have him covering that number. It probably would go
Yeah,
to like I think if Thomas
8
doesn't
or
play, it goes to like
9.
7.5.
Yeah, 7. Yeah, it's probably he's probably worth a point at least. So
Yeah.
yeah, it probably goes up to a touchdown. So yeah, I probably would. Yeah, I'd probably have the Commanders win by 2 scores. So yeah, I don't. Yeah, so I probably would not think that the Giants would cover them. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, he's a huge key this year for the Giants. If they want to kind of try to upset a couple teams, they need him on the field.
Yeah, exactly. And then one more thing about Jackson Dart, with him being elevated that number 2 spot. If Russell Wilson pulls a hamstring during the game, guess who's coming in? Jackson Dart.
Yeah, Jackson Dart. So yeah, it'd be fun to see him get in. Yeah, and I think he deserved to get that number 2 spot the way he played in the preseason. So
He did.
yeah, he did. He absolutely did. So yeah, worst comes to worst, yeah, wouldn't be the worst defense either. Wouldn't be the worst defense in the world to come in for first game playing the Commanders defense either. So it could be worse. So yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll see what ends up happening there on Sunday in Landover, Maryland. But we'll move on to your Patriots, and the Mike Vrabel era begins on Sunday in Foxborough as they host the Raiders. The Pete Carroll era begins for the Raiders too. So 2 new coaches going at it in Foxborough. I think this is a competitive game. I think this is gonna be a competitive game. But I think the difference in this game is going to be Travion Henderson. I think Travion Henderson's going to have a good game. He's going to be able to run the ball and have success. That's going to be key to that Patriot offense, especially when they got to go against a guy like Max Crosby. That's going to be, especially with still a shaky offensive line, in my opinion, Max Crosby. So I do think Travion Henderson's going to play well. I do think Drake May will throw a touchdown pass or 2. Now on the other side, I think who I think's got a monster game on Sunday? Brock Bowers.
Genty.
Brock Bowers.
Oh, Brock Bowers. Yeah.
Brock Bowers. Because I think Genty will be contained by the Patriots defense. I think they'll contain Genty, but I think Brock Bowers is going to have a. Seeing the fact that Christian Gonzalez might not be in that secondary,
yeah, he's banged up,
and a move I don't get what you guys made. I don't get the fact you guys cut Jabril Peppers. I don't get why you guys.
Yeah, that was a surprising one.
You guys are a little bit weak. You guys are weak. I think the Patriots are weak. That's the biggest weakness of the defense is safety for the Patriots. So I think that it's going to be either Genty or Bowers having a big game, because one of those two, it's going to be this, because they're either going to have to double Bowers with one of the safeties, or they're going to have a safety in the box to contain Genty. So I think one of those two guys will have a big game. I do think they'll try to stop the run and try to force Geno to beat him. So I do think Brock Bowers is going to have a good game. But I think the difference in this one too, just like the Giants and Commanders, I think that the Patriots will score touchdowns when they're in the red zone. I think they'll be better in the red zone. I think the Raiders will move the ball, but I think the Patriots defense will be kind of like a bend but not break and hold them to field goals. I think the game comes right down to the end, and I think the Patriots defense makes that stop. And that's why I got the Pats going to 1-0, starting the Mike Vrabel era with a win. I got the Patriots beating the Raiders 24-19. Justin, do you agree with me that the Mike Vrabel era for the Patriots begins with a victory?
Yeah, I'm with you. I got the Pats as well, 23-17. I feel decently good about it. You mentioned right at the top with Max Crosby. Yeah, he could be a game wrecker, and that's going to be a huge test for the offensive line right away to kind of see how they defend him. I assume they're going to double team him. I could see him take over and wreck it and force a fumble or 2, forces May to throw a bad pass, and leads to interception. So I could see Crosby being a difference maker on that defense and causing a lot of issues. But I do think the Patriots defense does enough. And yeah, I think whatever they try to do, contain Bowers or which one they try to stop, Genty or Bowers. Yeah, they might give up some yards to the other one, but yeah, I expect the Patriots defense to play well. I expect them to force turnover too, and I'm excited to kind of see Drake May with Diggs, Kyle Williams, and kind of the new and Travion Henderson, kind of this little bit new looked offense here. How they do, and especially with McDaniels too, because he really hasn't had much success besides having Tom Brady as quarterback. So I'm a little worried about that, but I'm kind of excited. So I'm excited to kind of see how this new offense looks. The change that they made on offense, see how it looks. And again, it's probably gonna take a little bit of time to get it going, but the Raiders secondary, that's not great. So I'm kind of happy they're playing a team that they should have some success and not playing, they're not playing like the Eagles or something that have a pretty good secondary.
Exactly. And you brought up the offense. And that is going to be interesting because, Josh McDaniels takes over for Alex Van Pelt. Drake May does have to learn a new scheme, but they do. I think they have. I like some of the weapons they have. Obviously, Travion Henderson, you like. Stephon Diggs. He might not be the guy who was in Buffalo, but he's obviously an improvement of what they had. And I think you can get more production out of Demario Douglas because of having Stephon Diggs on the field. I think you can get more production out of Demario Douglas. So I think there'll be I think there'll be a better running game. I think the passing will be better. And yes, Drake may have to learn a new scheme, but Josh McDaniels always tailors his offense to what his players do well. Because you remember when Cam Newton came in that one year, he designed the offense around Cam Newton.
Yeah.
I feel like Josh McDaniels is an offensive coordinator that designs an offense around his players' strengths, and that's why I think it's going to work out. And I think Drake May is going to have a good year for the Pats.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think he will too. I wasn't a big Van Pelt fan last year. I thought the play calling was not great, and yeah, so I'm kind of excited to see it. But yeah, the new but yeah, if he tailors the offense more toward Drake May, I do see. I think they should have success, and yeah, I'm kind of excited to see Drake May take that second step or that next step this year, and just also when he does take off and run, I hope he's kind of learned his lesson this year too now of not trying to take the hit and just get it down or get out of bounds. Because I thought last year he was trying to play hero ball a little bit too much when he was taking off and running, and don't want that to happen again this year.
Absolutely not. You definitely want him to stay healthy. You don't want Josh Dobbs or Tommy DeVito playing for this team. You definitely want Drake May to stay healthy. Now we will move on to a game in the Meadowlands. We got Aaron Rodgers. The NFL does a great job of this. And they did this before Rodgers signed with the Steelers, but they had a feeling Rodgers was obviously going to sign with the Steelers all the way back in March. But we got Aaron Rodgers heading to New York to face his former team in the Jets. This is an interesting game, but I think in this game, you saw who the Jets lost today. They lost Vera Tucker, and that's a loss for a team that really wants to run the ball. That's going to be a loss because Aaron Glenn he likes that ground and pound because the Jets, they lack a lot of depth at receiver. The quarterback is very inconsistent. They want to be a run-first team, but I think they're going to have issues in this game offensively because the Steelers are good at stopping the run. They're good at getting pressure on the quarterback. I think they'll do that. I think Fields will make a mistake or two. Now, I think he makes some plays on his legs. Maybe the Jet defense forced a turnover from Aaron Rodgers. But I think the Steelers win this game, but it's not because of Rodgers. I don't think they win it because of Rodgers. I think Rodgers plays okay. I don't think he's great. I think he plays okay. But I do think he makes less mistakes than Justin Fields. He's the quarterback that makes less mistakes than Justin Fields. I think this is going to kind of be an ugly game with turnovers. I think it's going to be close and competitive and a little bit of an ugly game. But I think because of their defense, that's how the Steelers got a lot of wins last year because of their defense. And I think that trend continues this year. Because of their defense, I think that the Steelers win this game. And I got them winning it 20-13 over the Jets. But Justin, can the Jets get revenge against their former quarterback and start the Aaron Glenn era with a win?
I don't think they will. I got the same score as you here, 2013. I think it's be an ugly football game. Defense, and I think the Steelers in this one are just going to stack the box and try to force Justin Fields to throw the football on them. Because we did not see that a lot in the preseason. They did not take a lot of shots of them. I'm with you. I think it's going to be an ugly football game. There's going to be some turnovers. And if Rodgers goes right down the field and they go up 7-0, it didn't seem like Jets have a lot of offense for a lot of faith. In Justin Fields to throw the ball around in the preseason. So I do think Aaron Rodgers plays decent in this one. May make a turnover too, but I think the Steelers defense is yet again the difference maker in this one.
Yeah. Interesting matchup because Fields was the starter for the Steelers for 6 games. Rodgers was the starter for the Jets the entire season. So it's weird. It feels like they weren't traded for each other, but it feels like they are. And they'll be playing against each other on Sunday. But moving on to an AFC matchup in Indianapolis, as we got a matchup between probably the 2 coaches in front offices that are on the hot seat the most going to the 2025 season as the Dolphins head to Indy to face the Colts. And I think this is going to be a little bit of an ugly game where there's turnovers because, you got Daniel Jones as the quarterback. You're going to get a turnover or 2 when Daniel Jones is playing. But I do think he'll make some plays in this game, especially with his legs. I think Tua will turn the ball over once or twice, but I think he'll make plays, especially to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I think the difference in this game, too, is I think, Tua will be the quarterback who makes less mistakes. And I think that Tyreek Hill will have a pretty good game. I think he'll have a pretty good game against this Colts secondary. They improved it a little bit with Cameron Bynum and Tre'Davious Ward, but they didn't improve it a ton. So I think Tyreek Hill makes plays. I think this game comes right down to the end. I think it's right down to the end. I think the Dolphins win this one by a field goal. I'm gonna go. This is a game I went back and forth on. I went back and forth on this. This is two teams that are in the middle of the league and two coaching staff and front offices that are completely in the hot seat. But I'm gonna go with the Dolphins here. I'm gonna go with the Dolphins 23-20 over the Colts. But Justin, can Daniel Jones get a win his first start as Colts quarterback?
Our first disagreement of the year, I got the
Yes.
Colts in this one, 20-16.
Finally, we have
yeah.
a disagreement. And honestly, I'll
Yeah.
admit something. I was leaning towards Colts, but I saw that we didn't disagree in a lot of games, so I kind of had to take the Dolphins here.
Yeah. I'm just with me. I'm going with the Colts because I don't trust the Dolphins at all. I think Daniel Jones will play decent against the secondary, which is one of the worst in the league. I feel like I think Jonathan Taylor has a good game on the ground. I know the Colts defense is great, but all the Tyreek Hill kind of drama that always now he's on a captain. I don't know what the big deal is with that. I don't love the vibes of Miami. Yeah, it's not great in Indianapolis either. But I think Daniel Jones makes enough plays in this one. I think he have a pretty good game with his legs as well. So I'm going to take the Colts here at home to win 21-16. And big one for both of these fan bases. You mentioned both guys, both front offices are on the hot seat. And for both these fan bases that probably don't have a ton of expectation, maybe the Colts a little bit more, but both these fan base could start off one of these feel very, be one of these fan base would love the 1-0 start of just kind of feeling a little bit better about things after especially Miami where it's been a brutal offseason.
Absolutely, yeah. One of these fan bases definitely. This is a crucial game for both to have one of these teams we want to know is critical for it's critical for one of these two teams to start 1-0. It definitely is. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if no one wins this game and it's a tie. Seeing the way things have been going for these two teams, I wouldn't be surprised if no one wins it and it's a tie. But it'd be definitely critical for one of these teams to start the season with a win. Now we got an AFC North matchup in Cleveland as the Bengals travel to Cleveland to face their rivals, the Cleveland Browns. And I think in this game, I think that the Bengals made a good decision in the preseason playing their starters because I think they have a big game. I think they get into the 30s. I think you're going to have a big game out of Burrow, big game out of – it's going to be like the opener 2 years ago where the Bengals looked terrible in Cleveland because Cleveland's defense isn't as good as it was 2 years ago. I think that Burrow's going to have a good game. I think that they're going to be able to run the ball with Chase Brown. I think they get into the 30s. And I do think Joe Flacco plays one of his best games of the season because they're facing the Bengals defense. But I think in the end, I'm going to go with the better quarterback here. I'm going to go with the better team here. And I got the Bengals winning this one 31-24. But Justin, can Flacco and the Browns hang the Bengals another opening day loss?
No, they better not this year. I got the Bengals as well, 27-21. Maybe there's a little bit of a slow. I know the Bengals played a little bit in the preseason. Maybe it's a little bit of a slow start, but I think Joe Burrow gets over that pretty quickly. Jamar Chase, Higgins have a pretty good day against a horrible horrible Browns defense. They should do enough. And I think the Bengals defense gives up some points in this one. Joe Flacco, I agree with you. I think he has one of his better games of the year. But I don't have a ton of confidence in this pick, but if they don't lose this, if the Bengals don't lose this one, you just gotta rip the Band-Aid off and just fire Zach Taylor because
you're doing after one game
next week.
You can't afford
to lose Jacksonville next week.
I know. The Bengals got a very, very easy schedule to start the season. If they don't get off to a good start this year and they miss the playoffs, Zach Taylor got to be fired, no doubt about that. So the Bengals absolutely, with the schedule they got early in the season, they definitely have to get off to a good start. Now we'll move on to an NFC South matchup in Atlanta between the Bucs and the Falcons. Now let's not forget the Falcons did beat the Bucs twice last year, but the Bucs ended up winning the division. Ironically, by a couple games, they won the division. So the Bucs come into Atlanta to play the Falcons, and I'm going to go with the upset here. The Bucs are a 2.5 point favorite. I'm going upset here. I'm going Michael Penix. I think he has a good game. I think he has a good game through the air. I think they contain Bijan, but I think Penix has a good game with his legs. I think he has another good game through the air. I think he has 2 or 3 touchdown passes. And I do think Baker Mayfield, they move the ball on this defense, but I do think, the draft pick of Jalen Walker and getting Leonard Floyd, I think the pressure they put on him, and there's a good chance that the Bucs won't have Tristan Wirfs in this game, which is big. They're not going to have Chris Godwin. So with some of the guys the Bucs aren't going to have, I think it's going to make a difference. I think this is, again, a close competitive game, but I'm going with the home team here. I'm going with the home team. I got the home team 28-24. I got the Falcons over the Bucs. But, Justin, can the Bucs continue their dominance in the NFC South and start 1-0?
Yeah, I'm with you here. I get the Falcons as well, 20-23. I'm with you with the Bucks. I think there's some injuries right now that have me a little bit concerned, especially with Wharfs being out too. And Chris Godwin, he's been their top wide receiver, him and Mike Evans. So, and yeah, you mentioned it too. The Bucks could not stop the Falcons last year. Off defensively. So, I think the Falcons have a pretty. I think Penix plays pretty well in this one. I think the offense is a lot, and I don't love the Falcons defense, but I do think they make enough plays. And can one of those new rookie pass rushers that they got, could one of them make the big difference this one and get a big sack on Baker Mayfield? I think they will, and I think the Falcons win this one 28-23.
Yeah, the Falcons definitely improved their path. They definitely improved their defensive line, especially in the draft. 2 of their first-round picks were edge rushers with Jalen Walker and James Pierce. We'll move on to New Orleans as the Cardinals travel to New Orleans to face the Saints. And I think this game will be a little bit competitive early. I think Kellen Moore could scheme things out for Spencer Rattler and keep him in the game. But once the second half gets going, I think the run game of Arizona and I think the quarterback play of Kyler Murray is going to be better than the quarterback play of Spencer Rattler. I think Rattler will turn the ball over a couple times. I think he's going to be under pressure by Josh Sweat and Jonathan Gannon's defense. And I got the Cardinals winning this by 2 scores. I got the Cardinals winning this 27-17 over the Saints. But Justin, can Spencer Rattler get his first win? He was 0-6 last year as a starter. Can he get his first win as an NFL starting quarterback? And can Kellen Moore, and then that would result in Kellen Moore getting his first win as Saints head coach. And both those things happen on Sunday.
I'm got the Cardinals as well, 24-16. I wouldn't be totally surprised if the Cardinals franchise somehow lost this game, but Riley could get the ball to Chris Olave and he could have a pretty good game. And if they can kind of contain Kyler Murray, I know that offensive line for Arizona, they've really done a good job the last couple of years trying to build that thing up. Saints could somehow get pressure on them, force a couple turnovers. I think the Saints have a really good chance, but I don't think they're gonna have a ton of success. And I don't think I don't think the Saints are have a ton of success protecting Spencer Rattler, who now in his last couple years of college didn't have an offensive line. So far in this NFL, he's not had a great offensive line either. So I get the Cardinals in this one. They should take care of business this one, and they want to be considered like a wild card team in the mix. It's a game you gotta win.
Absolutely. They definitely have to win this game. They want to be considered a wild card contender. Now we got a interconference matchup in Jacksonville as the Panthers take on the Jaguars. And this is not a lot of people are going to see this game, but this potential to be the most entertaining game in week 1. Because I think this will be like a red zone game where you're watching the red zone channel and both teams are just going back up and down the field. I think that's going to be this kind of game where both teams are just moving up and down the field. Because I think both teams, because these defenses are arguably the 2 worst in the NFL. I mean, these are probably arguably 2 of the worst defenses in the league. So I think it's a big day for Trevor Lawrence. I think Travis Hunter is going to have some receptions. I think Brian Thomas is going to have a big day against this defense. I think Travis Etienne is going to be able to run the ball. But on the other side, I do think Bryce Young with Tack McMullen is going to have a big day too. I think both quarterbacks are going to have a big day. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go with the home team here in a high-scoring affair. I'm going to go with the Jags, 31-27 over the Panthers. But Justin, can Bryce Young pick up where he left off last year and get the Panthers to 1-0?
I think they keep this thing close, but I got the Jags as well here, 26-24. I'm with you. I think this should be a very high-scoring, entertaining football game. I am going to buy into the Bryce Young kind of at the end of the year, look better and look competent. But it's kind of interesting to see how Liam Cohen's done a really nice job as an OC the last couple of years. Especially with Baker and Will Levis a couple of years ago at Kentucky. It's see how Lawrence looks under him. But I do think he plays pretty well in this one just because Carolina's defense is it's brutal. And then, excited to watch Travis Hunter go out there for the first time in the NFL. And I get the Jags winning this one 26-24.
Now, every game in like week 1 that everybody picks a survivor. Everyone picks a survivor. This is probably going to be the game. And a lot of survivor pools, a lot of people are probably going to pick the Broncos because this should be the most lopsided game of week 1. And I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a very rough day for Cam Ward. Again, especially going to Denver against arguably the best defense in football. The way they played last year, then the additions of Dre Greenlaw and Tua Hufanga, those additions, you got a really good defensive line. Probably one of the most underrated D-lines in the league with Zach Allen, with Jonathan Cooper, with Nick Bonino. Denver's got a really good defense. And I think offensively, they have a lot of success running the ball. RJ Harvey I think he does a good job. I think he does a good job running the football. I think this team, and they got J.K. Dobbins, so I think they run the ball. I think Bo Nix throws a couple touchdown passes here. I just don't see Sean Payton at home with the expectations the Broncos have. Losing, this is the highest expectations the Broncos have had since they won the Super Bowl in 2015. But the expectations the Broncos had, I don't see Sean Payton losing to a rookie quarterback. I think Cam Ward turns the ball over 2 or 3 times, and I think it's a long day for the Titans. I got the Broncos here, 31-13 over the Titans. But Justin, can Cam Ward lead the Titans to a major upset on opening day in Denver?
No, I'm with you. I hit the Broncos 23-10. Yeah, you mentioned the rookie quarterbacks. Like even Jaden Daniels last year down in Tampa Bay, he looked bad, and like it just happened. These first games for these rookie quarterbacks on the road, especially, and yeah, they're playing maybe the best defense in the league right now, and I think it's gonna be a rough day for him. And I think Bo Nix takes care of business, does enough, and I think the ground game kind of carries them. They kind of control the time possession in this game, and maybe this is close midway through like the second quarter, somewhere around there. But the Broncos offense kind of where's Tennessee's defense down by the second half, and Denver takes care of business 23-10.
Texans head out to LA to face the Rams, and I think this is a competitive game. Both teams kind of come in banged up. Joe Mixon's not going to be playing for the Texans. Texans' offensive line is a mess. Texans' offensive line is a disaster. But the Rams are in some trouble too because Matthew Stafford, we don't know how healthy he's going to be with his back injury. We don't know how healthy he's going to be. But I think the difference in this game, there's 2 reasons why I think the Rams are going to win the game. I think Kyron Williams is going to run the ball really. I think he's going to be able to run the ball because the Texans don't have as good of a run defense as they do a pass defense. Their pass defense is excellent, one of the best in the league, but they don't have as good of a run defense as they do pass defense. So you're going to get a good game out of Kyron Williams. And I think this Rams defensive line is going to get a lot of pressure on C.J. Stroud and force a couple turnovers. And that's why I got the Rams going to 1-0. I got the Rams going to 1-0, winning this game 24-17 over the Texans. But Justin, can C.J. Stroud and the Texans defense lead them to an upset win in LA?
No, I got the Rams 23-20. I think this is one of the more fascinating games this weekend. You don't really know how healthy kind of Matthew Stafford is right now, and with the Texans kind of interesting offseason for them. The expectations kind of I've gone down a little bit after C.J. Stroud's rookie year. Can they protect them? And that's where I think the difference in this game is. I think the Rams are going to get after Houston off of the line. I think Stroud's going to he's probably made a couple turnovers in this game, and I think Matthew Stafford takes care of business. I think they're able to run the ball effectively enough, and I think the Rams at home take care of business in this one, 23-20.
Got an NFC West matchup in Seattle as the Niners travel out to Seattle to face the Seahawks. And I think this is going to be a close competitive game. A lot of people like the Niners this year because of their schedule. A lot of people think they're back. I think a lot of people are forgetting though about the Niners is they lost a lot of players, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They lost Dre Greenlaw. They lost Tua Huifunga. They lost Leonard Floyd. They lost Tre'Davious Ward. They lost Deebo Samuel. They lost a bunch of guys because they had to end up paying Brock Purdy. And I do think Brock Purdy moves the ball in this game. I think he does. I think he moves the ball. I think Christian McCaffrey has a decent game. I think Seattle's pretty good against the run. So I think it's a decent game. And don't forget, too, that Brandon Ayuk is out for 6 weeks. So I think the Niners, they move the ball. But I think that, again, the difference in this game is I think Sam Darnold has a good game. I think he has a good game. I think this Niners defense isn't what it was 2 years ago. I think it's still decent. It's still decent, but it's not what it was 2 years ago. I think Sam Darnold has a good game at home here. I think this is close and competitive. And I think Sam Darnold leads a game-winning drive here. I think the difference in this game, too, is Seahawks, when they get in the red zone, they score touchdowns. Niners get field goals. I think this is a close, competitive game. But I'm going to go with the Seahawks here. I'm going to go with the Seahawks, who are an underdog at home because they didn't play well in Seattle last year. As we all know as Giants fans, the Giants went in there and beat them. So I'm going Seattle here. I'm going Seattle with the upset. I got the Seahawks 24-23 over the Niners. But Justin, will the Niners make it 4 in a row against the Seahawks in Seattle?
Yeah, I got the 49ers this one, 23-16. I think one of those Niners wide receivers are step up and do enough, like a Ricky Pearsall on this one. I think they play well enough. I think Purdy makes enough plays in this one with his arm, and I think McCaffrey has a good game on the ground. And with Seattle, I didn't love paying Sam Darnold. I do think this might be one of I don't think he's gonna play great. They really need Jack Smith and Nick Bosa to be that number one guy this year. Can he do it? But I think Seattle does have a decent game on the ground, but I do think San Francisco defense, when Seattle gets to the red zone, they do hold them to kick a couple field goals in this one, and I'm going to take San Francisco to get a division win on the road.
All righty, we'll wrap up talking about an NFC North matchup in Chicago on Monday Night Football as J.J. McCarthy makes his debut for the Vikings as they face Ben Johnson and the Bears, and Ben Johnson making his coaching debut for the Bears. And we've heard a lot of stuff with the Bears, very up and down preseason from Caleb Williams. And I think it's going to be an up and down game. I think he'll make plays, but I think he'll also make mistakes in this game. And I do think that I think the difference in this game is the Vikings will run the ball better. I think they'll be the team that runs the football better. I think they'll run the ball better with Aaron Jones and the Bears do with DeAndre Swift. I think Aaron Jones has a pretty big game here because the Bears are not great against the run. So I think that Aaron Jones is a good game. And I do think that J.J. McCarthy manages this game. And I think the Vikings get a win here. I think the Vikings get a win over the Bears. I got the Vikings winning this one 23-17 on Monday Night Football over the Bears. But Justin, can Ben Johnson get a win in his debut as Bears head coach?
No, I got Minnesota as well, 20-17. I think I think in this game it's going to take some time for both quarterbacks to get it going. I could see a very slow start, very kind of low scoring game, and a big test for the Bears offensive line. Against a Brian Flores team that's going to bring a lot of pressure all game. How do they kind of hold up? And I think the Vikings defense does make enough plays. I do think they get after Caleb Williams a couple of times. And yeah, I think I agree. I think the Vikings do run the ball better than the Bears in this one. And I will take Minnesota to get another road team, going on the road in division, getting a victory.
Yeah, I think that the Vikings win this one close against the Bears. So it should be an interesting week one. It should be a lot of fun with the NFL being back. And it all starts tomorrow night in Philadelphia with the Eagles and the Cowboys. That's going to wrap up this edition of Sports Talk with R&J. But we will be back in about 10 to 15 minutes talking about the Yankees' big stretch they have right now. They got a big win in Houston and week 2 of the college football season. So make sure you tune in for that.
Hello, my name is Joe Aguirre. I'm the president of Clovercrest Media Group. And here at CMG, we have a wide variety of podcasts, including sports shows like Keys to the City, The Roll Call, Throwing Jabs, All Four Downs, and Jawing About the G-Men. And great true crime shows like Sticky Week, Crimes and Consequences, Ivy League Murders, and Bird, the unsolved murder of David Eichmann. You can find all these podcasts and so much more by visiting clovercrestmedia.com.